Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Jason and I am your watch guy today. Now, if you are new around here, please do consider subscribing just below. It really does help push the content that I create to a wider audience and grow our community in the best type of way. Today I am reviewing a pair of watches from Alkin. Alkin are a British boutique brand from the city of Bristol. I hear it's a really lovely city, obviously not as great as Liverpool, however, who really is? Now, Alkin have released their Model 3 in two different variations, their Diver and their Dual Time, which means double the goodness for us today. These are British boutique pieces and honestly they really do look the part. I think Charlie's absolutely nailed these pieces and I think a lot of you will be very excited for their release. Speaking of which, link is in the description to the Alkin website. These have been sent to me for review by Alkin, however I am returning them once the review is done. I don't get to keep them. Completely open and honest review as always. Let's get this camera turned around and let's have a look at these watches. So as you can see, guys, I've been graced with the presence of two fantastic looking watches today. Now these are both from Alkin. As I mentioned in the intro, this is a brand from Bristol in the UK. Now it is headed up by a gent called Charlie and he is the one who has sent these in for me to review. This is their Model 3, ready for release. Now this comes in two different forms, as you can see. Both of these are Model 3. However, this is their Model 3 Diver, which I think distinctly brings back some really good tones from a Zodiac Super Seawolf, which, as everyone knows, I am a massive fan of. And we have their Alkin Model 3 Dual Time, which is aimed more towards the jet setters of the world, the people who need this functionality in their bezel. As well as that, it adds a really nice dynamic to the range, I believe. Now, these are going to be available in a few different colours, however I think that this copper dial is just to die for, especially in person. I hope the camera does it justice because it's a beautiful, beautiful watch and I've really enjoyed having it in and being able to show it off on wrist. So as I'm sure you have guessed by now, there are going to be some similarities between these pieces and I'll go through them first. Now, they are packed into a 316L stainless casing. The body on both pieces are the same. We have this screw down crown to aid with water resistance and it is fully brushed throughout. It is worth mentioning that these watches will be supplied on a bracelet as you see on the Dual Time here. The pricing isn't 100% confirmed for release yet, however it is likely to be around the £425 mark for these pieces, which I think for a boutique British brand is definitely something that will pique the interest of a lot of you guys. Also, another thing that these two share is their dimensions, as I'm sure you wouldn't be shocked to know. So 41mm in diameter, that is including this bezel, slightly less without. It is around 11mm thick, lug to lug around 49mm, and these lugs are 20mm lugs. One thing that definitely aids the wearability of this piece is that these lugs slope very nicely towards wrist, which I think definitely makes for a more snug fit, certainly on our smaller wrist sizes. Screw down crown on this piece, which aids in our 200-meter water resistance rating, which definitely qualifies this piece, well, its sister piece here, for a dive rating that will be sufficient to most of us. Screw down case back with the standard information around the outer edge. We have a lovely dome to this sapphire crystal, which really does add a very vintage effect to the watch. AR coating, as you can see as I reflect the light there. The bezels on each of these pieces are slightly different. 120 click unidirectional bezel. However, as you would expect, the markings are different for each functionality. Now, I have a ceramic bezel insert on this piece. On the black and blue models, as you can see, it's etched with these stark white, very contrasting markings, which make it very legible. The triangle up at the 12 o'clock batons throughout, aside from the 15, 30 and 45, which mimic very nicely the 3, 6 and 9 dial. This is also a loomed bezel, BGW9 on this model. The green variant comes with a C3 loom signature instead. Both watches are fitted with the Miyota 9039 movement, which is a nice high beat, 28,800 beats per hour movement. Gives you this lovely sweeping second hand, and it is definitely a more premium option to a lot of movements on the market, with still the Japanese reliability that we all do love. The steel bezel insert definitely contrasts the dual time variant very nicely. I think it gives it a more sleek look to it, a more elegant design. We have black indented markings throughout the bezel, 01 all the way to 11, and this 12 o'clock marking is marked by this loom pip. That is a BGW9 loom pip. I will obviously show you the loom signatures of each of these pieces very shortly. There's the Alkin logo very proudly etched into the crown itself. Really nice clean edge finish to these bezels. Keeps them with a really nice smooth design, however very functional also. Brushed finish to each of the bezels, again gives it a very vintage effect for myself, I think. So now we have the similarities out of the way, let's have a look at where these pieces differentiate themselves. The dive piece, as I said earlier on, really does give me a vibe of the Zodiac Super Seawolf, and I absolutely love that type of design. That really vintage skin diver type of look. I think that Alkin have definitely nailed that here. The dial on this piece has a really lovely texture to it, an almost sandpaper-like texture. Well, a smooth sandpaper-like texture, if you would like. It is a sandwich dial. Below this upper dial we have a super luminova dial, which will accent the 3, 6 and 9 really lovely and give us a very legible and present loom signature, which is something that we really do look for in a dive piece. Another thing that I would like to mention is how nice the stark white handset really does accent this black dial. Around the outer edge of the dial you can see that we have a minute track, which definitely aids in the legibility of the time telling on this piece. We have Arabic numerals all the way around at the 5-minute markings. Let me just move this handset around a little bit for you so you can see the rest of this dial. As you can see, the Alkin logo printed to the 12 o'clock, followed by automatic 200 meters. The printing on this and the logo, I think, is really suiting to a boutique brand. I think it's very elegant, in my opinion, and I think it's very well thought out. Something that I've enjoyed seeing on these dials, and it really does flow through the ethos of the brand, I think. The arrowhead hour hand and the sword style adjacent minute hand really do make for legible viewing to the time telling of this piece, and the white outer edge to that handset really does give a really nice aesthetic to this piece, and in my mind helps the design flow very nicely. We have a lollipop second hand with a pencil like ending to it that reaches very nicely out to the edge of the dial. Very well fitted handset on this piece. There's only one more thing to cover with Charlie's Diver, and that is the loom shot. I don't think this is going to let us down. Okay, so you can see the effect of this sandwich dial. It really does help the loom shot, I think, and I think that it really does leave a very nice signature. Now, it's not nuclear standard loom, however, very well spread, as you would expect from a sandwich dial. Following through to this handset, it is very well applied. As you can see, the bezel is also loomed at each individual marking, which again really does help with a dive piece. I think that, you know, there's no corners cut with this loom shot, and that's really what I like to see from micro brands. You know, there's definitely ways to tighten up on your budgets. However, Alkin have not done that here. They've done everything as well as they possibly could, and that's nice to see from a small British brand. Really nice loom signature on this. I think this is definitely a 9. I mean, it does pretty much everything perfectly. I think it's actually a very, very safe 9, to be honest. I think a few of you would probably push this up to a 10. Let me know in the comments what you think. Really nice to see from Alkin. So what does the Dual Time have to offer? As I mentioned, this is definitely a more sleek, stylish type of design. It is definitely more aesthetically pleasing to the eye and has a few more design tones to it that I think have really edged this towards a more boutique look, maybe a more sophisticated clientele. For one, the indices on this piece really do scream premium to me. The black outer edge to the hour markings, the rounded, more elegant look to the indices, which follows through into the handset. This stadium shape handset and indice pairing really do leave a very nice aesthetic, I think. The indices are applied throughout. This gives an effortless transition for those globetrotters amongst us for this dual time functionality. The handset, as opposed to the diver, is, as I say, much more elegant in my opinion. One thing that Alkin have definitely done here that they didn't in their previous models is experiment a bit more with the colours. This copper tone dial is absolutely beautiful, and honestly, it's even more beautiful in person. It accents those indices gorgeously. The brushed finish throughout really does give a premium effect. This is definitely not your average run-of-the-mill dial, and that step down into the center, the higher outer edge, again gives a level of depth to this piece that really does stand out to me. The Alkin logo is printed in black, followed by automatic, which signifies that Miyota movement's in the background. Again, we have a lollipop second hand and pencil thin tip to this, which reaches out perfectly to the outer edge of the dial. Another thing that I would like to point out is that the hour hand sits really nicely inside that inner dial, and that again gives a very elegant look to the dial. It's another sign of Alkin not cutting corners and doing things correctly, which we love to see. Now there's only one thing left to look at on this piece, and that is the loom shot, so let me get the lights out and let's see how this follows the diver. So the dual time definitely doesn't disappoint. Now it doesn't give you the same wow factor, I think, as the diver. However, that's not really where this piece is aimed, so I could completely forgive Alkin for that. Loom pip at the 12 o'clock definitely helps with the functionality of the piece itself. This is a well spread loom and they've applied it really well. It's just that when you get to this type of level, you do really need to critique pieces with a little bit more scrutiny. Now, I think I wouldn't mark this badly out of 10. That being said, I'd definitely give it at least a 7, probably pushing towards an 8. Let me know what you guys think. I think that this, again, is really well done. It just doesn't have the same effect that this little beauty does, I think. Tell me what you think, guys. Now, in my brief for the Model 3, it did say, Charlie mentioned that these will all be shipped on a bracelet, and that means that we definitely should have a look at the bracelet on this Model 3. We have screw links on this one. It is solid end links, as you can see there. Fold over clasp, safety, milled clasp, it's solid. And one thing that is really, really nice to see, especially considering that this will be fitted to the diver pieces also, is this level of micro adjustment. 6 levels of micro adjustment. You're going to get the perfect fit with this one, guys. There's going to be no messing about. Drilled lugs will make it very easy to switch the bracelet in and out. Fully brushed effect throughout, which flows into the design of the watch very nicely. I think this is a winner, and the diver is also an absolute winner. This quickly became a favourite with my girlfriend. She absolutely loved it, and honestly I share her affection for it just as much. And that being said, I also love the dual time. I don't think I'd be able to pick out of these two if I was offered one, which, by the way, just to clarify things, I'm not. These are going back to Charlie once this review is finished. I just think they're gorgeous watches, and it's really nice to see a British brand producing such quality on the microband market. Going into their 3rd release, well done, Charlie, mate. Just absolutely well done. That being said, I have to include a moan section. Therefore, let's talk about my moans for this piece. Now, almost £500 for what is primarily a Miyota 9000 series powered diver. Some people are going to think that it's expensive. I think that the design that goes into these pieces really does add to what you're going to expect to pay. In my personal opinion, I think that they are well worth the price point. However, I do know that a lot of people argue about price points in the microbrand world. Personally, I think it's well worth it. You get an absolute quality here. You're not buying something that is overly mass produced. You are buying something that's come from the mind of a watch lover from Bristol. It is different to what you should expect when you're purchasing from the larger corporations out there. I think it's a beautiful design and well worth the price. The bracelet does look a little bit generic to me. It is a simple Oyster Link bracelet, however, it is what it is, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people would probably say if it's not broke, don't fix it. It does the job. It does the job. One final moan that I definitely need to pick up on is the circular brushing to this bezel, and I hope this is something that is picked up in production. The circular brush to it is not exactly central. As you can see, up towards the 12 o'clock here, it does veer, and I did notice that a little bit on wrist, and it did almost spoil the effect for me. So it would be nice to see that altered in production or fixed and have it more uniform, like the dual time that you can see here. The dual times is spot on in my opinion. Again, a lovely offering from a British micro brand, and if this is the type of style that you are looking for, I think that you definitely need to give Alkin your due consideration, because they are producing some absolutely beautiful pieces, as you can see here in front here. I've got to say, guys, I am going to be really sad to be sending these ones back to Charlie. However, they need to go home. Now, the dual time is an absolutely fantastic piece. I think that each of these watches really do bring their own speciality flair to the market. I think the diver really does own that vintage skin diver type of look, whereas the dual time really brings a level of elegance to the Model 3 and does add a dynamic that we don't always see on the market with that dual time function. Really nice to see. Now, if you'd like to check them out, they are linked in the description, along with a few other useful links, including my online store. It'd be really nice if you could check that out. Thank you for watching this one, guys. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Leave me a like and a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think of these watches. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.